Howdy, y'all. Happy Monday. Russ and I are weary travelers. I have to say, my experience was slightly better than Russ's, and a lot better than our friend Anthony Mangione, who's been on the show many a time. Because Russ, I think you were taking some glee yesterday at Anthony losing his mind as he saw the leaving time of his plane move from 4:30 to 5:30 to 6:40.
I wasn't taking glee. It was amusing me.
Yeah, there you go. I wasn't taking glee. It was just I saw how it was frustrating the hell out of him. And then we get a text last night that because his flight had changed from one terminal to the other. Well, when he got to Philadelphia, his bag wasn't there.
Yeah.
And I had
to beat me to Philly by like an hour and change instead of just like 10 minutes because my plane had its own futility. Couldn't take off because it was too hot. That was one thing, and there was some sort of sensor issue, right? Then when they got to the destination, way after the time, because it was probably a 90-minute delay, they didn't have anybody at the gate. So then we had to wait for someone to come to the gate. And it's like, it's not like they didn't know we were coming. This plane was supposed to be there. It was supposed to get in around 11:09, and it got in around 12:30, 12:45, about 12:30, I think, by the time we got off the plane. And so I got home by like 1:30.
Yeah, and I won't bore everybody with my luggage check-in thing. All I know is if you get a ticket and you're in the back of the plane and you don't want to check in your baggage, you're screwed, because basically if you're the last 20 people on the plane, they're gonna force you to check in your bag, and then it's basically like a lottery whether you get it or not. I have to say though, it's an experience to try to write your blog, which I tried to do on my layover in Minneapolis. I'm sitting at a table at a Dairy Queen right next to the gate, and I have a guy walking by basically waiting for me to get up so he can put the chair on top of the table so he can close, that was one thing. And then I couldn't finish it there, so I had to, on the plane before we took off, type out. And I've got this monstrous MacBook Pro, and you're typing like this because the seat is so close to you. I mean, just the travel stories. But we have to get to the food story, because that was the big thing. I did go to Dealey Plaza, and that was historic and phenomenal. The whole it was very interesting. I'm a big history buff, so seeing that and walking around Dealey Plaza and the grassy knoll and the picket fence, it was phenomenal.
In that era, it was interesting for me. I saw some things from my childhood. I was only a month old when the assassination happened, but obviously a lot of those other things that they were showing there, the moon walking, I watched that on television, things like that. Like that was part of my childhood. So it was interesting.
Yeah, as somebody pointed out, because I took a photo of me behind the picket fence, and I says, I promise that I'm not the second gunman. And a friend of mine says, well, yeah, that makes sense since you weren't born until 4 years later. Like, thanks. Right. I'm just making a joke. Okay, but the food.
The food. Let's get to the food.
I had two things. One was Dealey Plaza. The other one was finding some good barbecue. And Bill Meltzer, our friend and Hockey Buzz colleague, picked out a place called the Pecan Lodge. I mean, it was negotiated, but the Pecan Lodge was the place that we went to. And after a 45-minute wait, which, by the way, if we had waited an hour or two later, it would have been an hour and a half wait in sweltering conditions. I had the best barbecue of my life. It was incredible. Go ahead, Peter.
Oh, so I saw your Instagram post, and then I saw the post of you guys all sitting around. And this is where it all went terribly wrong for me. There's these nice plates, and you really hadn't dived in yet. Your faces were relatively clean. Your fingers weren't covered in grease. You didn't have napkins touched in your shirts. There were 2 beers on the table. Like, you can't eat barbecue without beer.
Well, you can't ostracize me because I was one of the beers.
You were one, Russ, and God bless you, because it's not like you were sitting around drinking in the American Airlines Center all day. Right. It's not like I mean, or maybe you were.
And
But
actually, to clarify, Peter, I drank while I was online to pass.
Yeah, half the people drank beers while they're online waiting.
oh, that's still weak sauce. I mean,
Well, I
it's
drank
just
there, too.
terrible. And then I don't want to get into a nationalistic thing about the American beer and sex in a canoe, but it's we know what that is, right? Anyways, but it's just very disappointing. I was expecting, I really wanted to see you guys, with some proper ales, really quaffing it down. A sample, you're going to have that level of quality barbecue because it did look delicious. There's nothing wrong with the food. You should add a nice little flight of different beers to go with it. Sample what went with the mac and cheese, with the ribs.
Yeah, I did my part. I had fried okra. Like, only one other person was like brave enough to order it because like they've never had it or whatever. But I went to school in Houston and I knew fried okra is good, so I ordered that.
Yeah, I had the bacon, macaroni, and cheese, and the angioplasty will be on Tuesday. Yep. But it was phenomenal, and if I never go to Dallas again, I can say I had the best barbecue. So Pecan Lodge, thank you, and thumbs up. Okay, let's get the show started because I'm sure everybody's bored of food.
I just want to add that when you guys come to Vancouver next year, I'm going to take you down to Wreck Beach, and we'll do lunch down there.
Oh yeah, I mean, I'm looking for. I know you said Indian fusion.
That's a joke. Wreck Beach is a famous nude beach, Mike.
Oh, I didn't know that would be fine as long as it's females. And Russ said he would. Russ bristled at an Indian fusion. I'm looking forward to like Chinese or seafood or whatever. So,
oh yeah, we can do dim sum.
We'll cross the bridge.
I went to a dim sum place in Philly. It's awesome.
Yeah, we go for dim sum all the time, and you don't need to be as long as you have a competent chef, you can have good dim sum.
No, dim sum's great.
Hello, Hockey World. Today is Monday, June 25th, 2018.
I'm Peter Tessier coming to you from Winnipeg today.
I'm Russ Cohen from Sportsology.
And I'm Michael Agello in cool, beautiful Buffalo, New York, and this is the HockeyBuzzcast here on HockeyBuzz.com. Eklund will be back tomorrow. We are ramping up. It is the 5-day negotiating window prior to free agency. We'll get to the Tavares talk in a second because it's going to be probably the dominant story of the next 2 or 3 days with him holding it's sort of the Brad Richards West situation at CAA in LA with all the teams going there. We'll talk about that in a minute. Well, let's start with the draft. We'll start with Russ. It was not an eventful in terms of trades, but it was interesting in terms of how it broke down. And like we discussed over the last couple of days, the draft would have been very different had two things not occurred. Number 3, Montreal taking Kotkaniemi, which we thought was a possibility after there was a lot of buzz about him and Montreal at the combine earlier this month. And then the surprising one was the Hayton pick at number 5 with Arizona, because that allowed Detroit, who had a great first round, to get Philip Zadina. So just break down the early part of that draft.
Okay, so I did find some things fascinating. There's no question. By the time I went on Sirius pre-show, I said that it was a really good chance that they were going to go with Kotkaniemi, and we kind of knew that. So getting past that, I mean, I know that they're going to take a hit on that, right? But here's what you don't know. For all we know, that kid was the top guy on their board. You don't know that he wasn't. And so for people to sort of assume that that's the case, I think is faulty. Because, again, I saw him play great in the Five Nations, like really, really great. And so I don't have a problem saying that this is a good pick. Now, if you want to tell me all these other guys are better, I'll say, yeah, maybe they are, but we'll wait and see. That's what you have to do. So they definitely took a hit there. Now, I was a little bit more surprised with Barrett Hayton, but again, this was a situation where Arizona said that he was high on their board. So he was there and they took him. They didn't say they took him just because he was a center. Now, do I think it played into it that both these guys were centers and ended in top 10? Yeah, I do. I do think it played into it. But that's the nature of the beast right now, because you can look around the league and see all the teams that don't have a top center, or what you would call a true number 1 center, right? So there was that. Brady Tkachuk going to Ottawa, that was great for Ottawa. I mean, it really was. Quinn Hughes falling to Vancouver. I did talk about that the day before, saying that it was possible to a bunch of my Vancouver friends, and I thought that was great. I mean, Boquist going 8, I'm not for that, but that's okay. It happened. The Kravtsov thing, the Rangers are getting beat up because, like me, I've only seen some highlights of them.
Right.
So everybody's, going with the more familiar. Well, you could have had Wahlstrom. You could have had Dobson. Either one of those guys, but now they went to the Islanders. So now Ranger fans are pissed off.
Yeah, but
they're pissed off simply because the Islanders took some players that they felt like could have gone there.
But I think that they, if there's this maybe disappointment on that point, but then they get Miller later in the first round. I think that was a real good move to move up to get him.
It was a really good move. That was actually very, very smart because he had dropped some, and so that was something. Looking at it, I was a little surprised Ty Dellandrea went 13, but he's a center, so that's that is a running theme here. I was surprised to hear some static about Denisenko at 15. I think people need to watch him play again. This kid has some special abilities, and the way he could dart in and out and really put on some speed and has a very accurate shot. I think they may have missed it. For people that said, go ahead.
I was going to say, a lot of people were lauding the Islanders with the 2 back-to-back picks. I mean, I think they were the main beneficiary of the Kotkaniemi, Hayton picks sort of causing a domino effect because 11 and 12, they get Wahlstrom and then Dobson. And those guys were supposed to be top 7, 8.
Yeah, but again, supposed to be compared to consensus. Here's the thing. I would argue with you and say Ottawa was the first beneficiary because I have Tkachuk ranked 2nd. They got him 4th. And I think Ottawa got a gift there. And I think that's something that could really help that franchise get on the map again when they need to. So that's something. But again, yes, then after that, they were beneficiaries, the Islanders. The Flyers were a beneficiary with Farabee. I had Farabee higher. And I'm not saying that's a definite thing that he was big value there, but I think people are going to find over time that that's really good value there. Another pick that people were like lukewarm on was Martin Kaut. This guy's got a load of talent. I'm sorry if he's sort of boring in an interview, and because he's Czech, you don't get it. But when he's on the ice, this guy's really good.
Yeah.
No, that's all that matters unless you're Calgary.
Yeah. So, even moving on from there, the Jay O'Brien Flyers pick, Flyers fans are all over that. I did get to see him at the All-American Prospects game and had seen some video of him. And this guy will play in the NHL. So if you want to nitpick about who was on the board, go ahead and do it. San Jose, if there's a team that could fix Merkley, they might be the one.
Yeah, from the Toronto perspective, there was a lot of speculation before the draft that if Merkley was there at 25, that they might take a flyer on him, and based on his talent isn't questioned. His talent in the defensive end has been questioned a lot, and his character off the ice has been something that's also been there. And I that's the thing. I don't know whether that would have worked out if he had gone to a bigger market like Toronto with all the focus. But he goes to San Jose, and they have an organization that might be able to get the best out of him. So that's a best case scenario for him. Let me just touch briefly, because in the Toronto fans, Sandin was projected to go around that point. So it's not a flyer. It's not something out on a limb. He's a pretty decent prospect. The only thing I took out of it is that Kyle Dubas, with his first round pick, went where he was comfortable. He knows the scouting in Sault Ste. Marie. He knows the general manager, I believe it was his former assistant when he was the GM of the Greyhounds. He's a big fan of the Greyhounds, being from the Sioux, so he's watched Sandin a lot. So if I think that there was a base of the Leafs draft picks that were based on their familiarity with these players. And you can say that a lot of teams do that, but I think more than with his first draft, I think he relied on that. A couple of their picks later on in the draft were kids that were at their rookie development camp last year, and then they draft them. So I don't think that, I'm not saying it is a criticism. I think that's smart when you're, maybe you're not buying into the scouting of the previous administration that has left, and you want to base everything on what so maybe these picks are more on him than it is on the scouts of the Hunter administration. But we'll see 3 or 4 years down the road whether these are successful or not.
Right. I'll say this. Oh, go ahead, Peter.
No, I was just, you go ahead, Russ. I got a question after this.
Okay. I'll say this. Like, Sandin was a guy that was just outside my first, so I think the pick's fine. I think he's an excellent player. He's an excellent offensive player. I like Kalen Addison better. I just do.
Yeah.
Now, here's the thing about it. I just think it's one of those situations where I only like Addison better because there's upside there that I think after he learns how to get in better condition, that will take him to another level. And if you already look at the kind of points he had, which I want to say he had about 65 points. Hold on. And he was taking 53rd. So, like, this is just,
it wasn't just Toronto that, I don't know where you had him on your, what's that?
Yeah. Addison had 65 points and he had 19 and 16 games. I liked Addison better than even Sandin. But, but I struggled with Sandin. Like, I had him in there. I had him not in there. So I'm not going to kill him for the pick. I think the pick's fine. I think that they did go with their strength. Like you said, they went with what they knew. They certainly left a lot of people on the board. So that's going to lead to guessing. That's all, Peter.
Yeah, Russ, I was going to just ask a question here. We had the crown jewel in Rasmus Dahlin, and he obviously number one and also defenseman. But then you jump down a little bit, and not till number 7 is another defenseman taken, and that's in Quentin Hughes. And then you have 8 at Adam Bok. Is it Boquist?
Boquist. Yeah.
Boquist. And then you have and then at 10 you have Bouchard. Now, I don't think any of those teams expected those players to be exactly there where they were. And we know that Chiarelli was delighted to have Bouchard end up at 10. Did any of these guys drop too much? And who out of the 3, who's got the best upside?
Well, see, here's the thing. All right, so wait, so name the 3 again, because I think you named one that
Boquist and Bouchard.
Right. So I think Boquist's too high. I don't think he dropped at all in my eyes, but I get what you're saying. I guess Bouchard would be the guy going 10 to Edmonton. That was a little surprising, but not overly surprising, because there was some that feel like maybe he's at his ceiling now.
Right.
And that's, one of those situations because he's a big, already physical, looking specimen. So that's something. There is another thought here too, and we'll never know the answer. The Rangers took Niels Lundqvist, who really was great at the Five Nations, almost as good as Boquist at times. And that's where I think he really got everybody's attention. They sort of knew about him before, but I think really shined there. And he got taken the pick before. I think if he was on the board, there's a chance that the Leafs would have taken him because there's a tremendous amount of upside in this kid, power play and otherwise.
Yeah, I remember listening to your show on Sirius XM, and Mark Edwards and Shane Malloy were saying that when they saw Lundqvist, they thought it was Boquist. His style was very similar. Yeah. So, but to answer your question, Peter, it's like I think Hughes went where most projections thought he was going to go, like latter half of the top 10. But Bouchard, I thought everybody thought Bouchard and Dobson were going to go top 5, top 6, maybe top 7. And I think they fell because the teams out there decided to move up center as a priority. And I'm not saying I don't think Kotkaniemi and Hayton are bad picks or bad prospects. I just think they were picked higher than I expected them to. So I think that threw everything out of whack.
I think one of the interesting things about this draft is you really only had about 3 or 4 truly set guys that you knew were going to go high.
Right.
Right. Like this wasn't an outrageously intriguing draft. I mean, it is intriguing, but it became more intriguing when you saw how things developed. And as I watched it on Saturday, you start reading stuff, or Friday night, and then you start reading stuff around, and then Saturday more details come out. You start to realize that, and the argument being, don't draft for need, draft for best player available. But some of the teams that maybe drafted for need also took the player I think they felt was the best player available to them. And the argument for need is your needs are going to change in 3 years.
Right.
But for a guy like Kotkaniemi, he's probably not going to be there for 3 years. Montreal just needed centers. They needed anything that could give them someone up the middle.
Peter,
right? It doesn't matter if he turns if he steps on the ice in October, or if it's October 2020. They need to have that in their organization. And I think the same with Ottawa and the same with other teams. And that's what I found really interesting about this draft was you could say you drafted for need, but no, I don't think any of these teams are saying we need this guy right now.
Well, no, and there was talk from some people that I was talking to at the draft that said that Montreal likes him so much that it's conceivable that they could put Kotkaniemi on their roster this year, which I think is a mistake. Yeah. I really do now. I mean, they know, these teams know more about their players than I do, but I'm just saying, usually as a rule of thumb, unless it's a superstar like a Matthews,
right.
You don't rush an 18-year-old.
You know what? The best example Montreal could take is look at Mark Scheifele. And when Scheifele came into the league in the preseason, he was lighting it up.
Yeah.
He got about 7 games in 2011. All of a sudden, there's no guys trying to. The game tightened up really quick.
Yeah.
And like, no, you're not ready yet. Then he came back and they tried again in the lockout shortened season, which is a benefit to Scheifele anyways. But that could happen in a year anyways.
Yeah.
Right? Or 2 years, sorry.
Yeah, so, I would never put Kotkaniemi in.
And look what he became if you get him in the right program and you work with the junior team and you work with what's there's a huge advantage to not rushing guys as long as you're developing them in the proper way.
Yeah, 2010 in the preseason, the biggest surprise for the Leafs was Nazem Kadri, and he really didn't be and they sent him back to junior, and you know what? He didn't become a good, consistent NHL player until 2016 or 2017. So it took 7 years for him to really round out, and that's you just don't rush these players. So anyway,
he's only going to be 18 in July. There's no way I'm putting him in there. I don't care how good he looks.
Now, okay, there were 2 significant transactions that occurred during the draft, which was a little disappointing. There were a lot of, trade up, trade down scenarios, but the one was the signing of Ilya Kovalchuk. And this is the thing. His agent came out, and the talking points with negotiations was he wants a Patrick Marleau contract. That was what was discussed. Well, Peter, he got the exact same contract, 3 years, $6.25 million, and I'm shaking my head and saying this is nuts, especially for a team that supposedly wants to get quicker. And as Russ said, Kovalchuk is not fast anymore.
No, he's 35. And here's the thing: at least Marleau was playing in the fastest league, and he was playing on a good club, and that he has almost defied a little bit of father time up to that date. Right. Kovalchuk's been away for 4 years. We have no idea what his legs look like in the NHL, and look at how the NHL's changed in 4 years to youth and speed. When he left, we still had it was transitioning to something. Now the NHL is a track meet, and can you imagine Kovalchuk trying to keep up with Vegas or Washington in the finals if he was on either of those teams?
I mean, look, I agree with you. I know someone who covers the KHL, so I've always checked in about Kovalchuk, and he did get benched in the playoffs recently, and so there are those things. I'm sure he's working on getting better skating condition this summer. I'm sure of it, which means he'll probably lose weight. The other thing is, look, John Tavares isn't a track meet guy either, and he does play a similar game in the way they go about their business, so he certainly can survive. He's going to live a lot off the power play. We know that. I think he's a 55-point guy. I think he'll help the Kings, but the amount that they paid him in a term is nothing I would be a fan of. But you know,
Russ, that's a really good point. Like, I think he can help them, but if it costs you, the Kings are already not in a great cap situation.
Right
now, they're in an even worse one. And if he can help you at 6.25, that's fine. But for 3 years, what if he says, "Nah, it's not working for me. I'm gone." Pulls the retirement thing again. You're still on the hook for the salary.
Right. It's a 35 and over contract.
It's a 35 and over deal. But what's the expense to the Kings if he maybe is only a 40-point guy, but you've got to play him because he's your big off-season acquisition?
It's a lot,
right? Like, and now you've got the trickle-down effect of, well, if we can't fill this in because we've got Kovalchuk.
Right.
Now, correct me if I'm wrong, LA also wants to have a chat with Tavares.
He's not part of the group.
Okay, so that was rumored.
Chuck, they were out.
Yeah.
That was rumored that he was going to be there. Okay, sorry.
Which they probably maybe they knew before they made this move, because they figured, okay, if we're going to get an audience with Tavares, we could hold off on Kovalchuk, and now we know we're not going to get an audience with him, so this is Plan B. But I just think I look at their roster, and we know that Dustin Brown got better and quicker last year. It was sort of a renaissance for him. And Kopitar bounced back as well, but all the talk has been since they got eliminated from Vegas is we got to get faster. You didn't get faster with Kovalchuk, and now there was talk about Skinner because he's quick, and now I think that's out because I don't think they can afford him on a 1-year deal. I don't know where they're going. I think they're going to be the same slow team, except they have now another slow of elderly player who might be able to bounce back. But
they do have some youth that are going to try and make the squad. I wouldn't call them dead just yet.
I mean, is Velarde ready?
But here, let me run something down to you. LA's top salary guys take up, there's 4 of them. They take up almost $27 million in cap. Here's their age: 30, 35, 33, 33.
Yeah. Now,
hold on. But the counter argument is their next tier guys, which will be Velarde and Kempe or whatever, don't take up much space at all. So that does counterbalance it. So it is possible to counterbalance this.
But we're forgetting one thing. They still have to sign Doughty. And I seriously doubt that Doughty will be the highest paid defenseman on this new contract.
Yeah, now that Carlson got 8 something, Doughty's got to get 10 something.
He's got to get at least 10. He's got to get the equal of Kopitar, and if he doesn't, then he's going to test free agency next year, because I don't think they'll trade him. But
they won't trade him.
Okay, the other one.
I mean, yes, they've got other guys, just that point, but they've also got to get out from under some contract things to get those guys in there.
Well, I don't know. Do they have any buyout candidates? I don't know.
Well, they traded their buyout candidate in Gaborik.
Right. They might have another one, though, that we're not thinking about.
And took back Phaneuf, but at least Phaneuf, the money that they're spending on Phaneuf is in an area where they needed bolstering, which was on defense. So and he actually played.
I mean, they have Matt Green on buyout. I mean, I guess they could. I don't know. I don't know what they do. Like, it's not pretty.
No, it's not. I didn't understand the move from their perspective, especially since they sort of admitted that the lack of speed against Vegas was a detriment to them, and they really didn't address it. So now I think they're slow. They're just as slow. Maybe they're a little deeper, but they spent a lot of money on a guy who might still be good. But I mean, we'll see. The other big.
The other thing is too, they might try and get Voynov back.
Well,
if they do that, does help the team, regardless of what you think about it.
Well, I mean, okay. I mean, right now their defense. I mean, Voynov would probably be a bottom pairing guy. I mean, you're talking Martinez, you're talking Doughty, you're talking Muzzin, and you're talking Phaneuf. He's a bottom pairing guy, and you're not going to pay a bottom pairing defenseman $4.5 million. So I don't think they can afford the luxury of. I think first of all, I think public relations wise, it's a disaster if he goes back to LA.
That doesn't mean they're not doing it.
Doesn't mean they're not doing it, but I think it's a disaster. And if they want to handle that, they want to go through that, fine. But I think more than likely they're going to probably have to. They're probably going to have to trade him. Now, if some other team wants to deal with that problem, then he gets that offense that occurred expunged off of his record, then we'll see where things go. And then I don't know where that stands right now, but let's talk about the trade that happened during the draft, which from a perspective, I don't get this deal in a few ways. I think it's even if Adam Fox signs with Carolina, but I think right now, as it stands, Calgary got the distinct advantage getting Noah Hannafin and Elias Lindholm for Michael Furland, Dougie Hamilton, and the rights to Adam Fox. Ross, what did you think of the deal?
Yeah, I think you could say there's a little advantage today, and Fox is going to be the counterbalance there because Fox is a second pairing D-man, like a number 3. So when you look at that situation, look, Carolina wasn't going to be able to sign those guys, right? So do I think they got good value for the fact that they couldn't sign those guys? Yeah, I do. The key will be Fox, and it will be up to Fox because I think he's going to play out his string at Harvard and then decide what he's going to do. So if Carolina becomes a really good team then and has an opening, he might stay. He might. So we'll see. I mean, that one's going to be interesting. As I said,
it was believed that Fox had told Calgary, "I'm not coming."
It's a Calgary. Yeah.
Yeah. So I mean,
we don't know.
Going to Carolina is probably much more preferable to him to sign a deal, right?
Yeah. I mean, he must have gave Carolina at least a hint that I kind of like it in that part of the country.
Well, I don't think it's that. I think he looked at Calgary with 5 defensemen on their NHL roster, and then Rasmus Anderson, Oliver Shillington, and Jussi Välimäki as in terms of prospects, and said, where am I going here? It's like I'm going to be.
Carolina's just as loaded.
Exactly, and that's why I think we have the makings of a Jimmy Vesey on defense. And we
don't know that because 2 years from now, Justin Falk will probably be gone, and then Adam Fox could step in.
Maybe, but I'm saying when he completes his senior year this year and he's a free agent by August 15th, he can choose where he wants to go, like Will Butcher did, like Jimmy Vesey did. I think that
if they get rid of Falk in the interim.
Yeah.
Let's not forget that Carolina is open for business.
Yes.
And given the fact that they just got Dougie Hamilton, and sure they gave up Hannafin in that, there are going to be GMs calling Don Waddell saying, you can't play that many guys in your prospects. Who do you want to get rid of? Right. Like it's going to be happening. But I think here's the thing. I mean, look, I get a lot of Western Canada stuff in my feed. I follow it a lot. It's, it's sort of where I've always been. There is a lot of concern about what Calgary is trying to do. And I just saw a great tweet about 2 minutes ago that said, Calgary's handling the Hamilton trade Calgary's PR around the Hamilton trade is being handled about as well as they have their arena deal. And there is some damage control going on here because a lot of this doesn't make sense. If you're Carolina, you got the best player in the deal. You got salary assurance, cost certainty. You've got Furland for one more year at 1.75. And you've got a prospect, a good prospect in Fox. And you had to give up guys you didn't want to sign because you weren't sure what you had in them. And you got to remember, new regime. We know what they have, but you didn't like where the contracts are going. So you eliminated that exposure, and you took on something that's not going to matter in your market if Hamilton really is this odd duck, so to speak. And that's the saddest thing about this was, within half an hour of that trade happening, all of a sudden, here come the talking heads with this information about Hamilton. And that's the kind of thing that happened in Montreal with Galchenyuk, and I really don't like it. If there's a problem with the player, like, deal with the problem and then shut your yap.
Yeah, but these
guys have to let it be an industry thing. not something that fans have to deal with in that case. Because you know what? We've all worked in places where there's a super talented guy, whether it's with numbers, programming, flipping burgers. Maybe he doesn't go out and hang out with all the rest of the staff. Maybe he's a bit of a different dude, but you love working with him because he's so good at his job. If that's Dougie Hamilton, you got to come up with better stuff than that, Calgary.
But these teams are interested in damage control even before the damage has been set.
They didn't damage control them. They lit a jerry can on fire because no one believes that because he doesn't want to go to Moxie's. Like, give me a break.
Okay, so here's the thing. I've been tracking him for a very long time, and even in his draft year, at the second day of the draft, whatever it was, rode the bus with him, had a long conversation with him. I've interviewed him 4 or 5 times since then. He's a very smart kid. Mm-hmm. And I think what's hard for some people to get is it's not that he's not a good teammate. It's just if he has an off day, there are sometimes people want to be by themselves. And if he wants to be by himself and go to a museum or read a book, what the hell is wrong with that?
Yeah.
Intellectual. He's a doctor. He could be a doctor when he hangs up his skates.
Yeah.
And that's why I've been defending that for the last 2 or 3 days because I don't understand it. I'll give you my own.
You mean the guy's going to do something that educates him and stimulates his brain instead of going out and getting drunk at a bar and hitting on waitresses? Sign me up.
Yeah, but the problem is that it's all about team camaraderie. It's all about everyone pulling together. And when you got somebody who is an outlier, and I mean, I'll take Dougie Hamilton on a team that I'm putting together any day. He's an immense talent. He's a right-hand shot. He's great offensively, but I think that, some teams and some players have problems with players like that. And it's not fair, but it's a reality.
An example, Mike. I'm going to bring my own life example into it when I play softball every year. Most years I play with a team of people that I know, at least a few people, but I've done it with people I don't know either, right? The people I don't know, I have a lot of fun when I play. I'm a good teammate. I don't hang out with them. Even the team that I'm on now, I know, a few people. I haven't hung out with them yet this year, but they love me as a teammate. We have fun when we play. I may go out with them once or twice this year. I probably will, but that's just not a focus for me. My focus for me is to play and have fun when I play, and I enjoy it. And I bet it's similar for him. And then off ice, he's a different person. Like, who cares?
Yeah. Now,
go ahead, Mike.
Just to come to your point, Peter, and I agree with it. One thing Calgary did, I think Calgary got the player advantage because I like Lindholm and I've always liked Hanifin, but they're going to end up, if they're signing Hanifin to an extension, they're going to end up paying him more than Hamilton's making. Hamilton's making 5.4. I think Hanifin's going to be probably asking for 5 to 6 with the increased amount of the salary cap. So they're not saving any money there. And I think Hamilton is a more certain talent. I mean, he's a little older and you don't know where Hanifin's going to go. I think he's going to be a really good player, but it's right now still all potential. He's getting on that road, but it's not dead set that he's going to be.
I do want to address something in the chat room because I think it's interesting for 1 second.
Yeah.
So obviously Evgeny Svechnikov's the brother of Andre. And, there have been some people that have talked about, will they try and get him because, you want to keep the brothers together. I got to tell you something. The other day in the hotel, I lost my phone. I left it down for a minute because I went to go, chat with some media buddies. And then I checked my pockets and I realized, I better go back to the chair that I was at because I didn't have my phone. And sure enough, Shane had my phone. And he said, you can go thank that young man who found it. I tapped him on the shoulder. It's Evgeny Svechnikov. So I want to say thanks again to him. That was really nice that he found my phone. So, but there's a lot of talk. Will the brothers play together? I doubt it, but it could happen.
Yeah, that's possible. Just to finish, Elias Lindholm I've liked for a while, but he's an RFA, and there was talk before the trade that Carolina and him and his representatives were nowhere close.
Right.
I don't know where that's going to go with Calgary, but Calgary can come to the point of view that, well, you haven't done anything for us. You're a new team, so it might be a bridge deal situation.
Right.
And it could be the same as Ferland because Ferland is a free agent next year. And he's probably going to expect to be paid. So I don't know if they just pushed things down the road, but they really didn't improve themselves in terms of the money aspect, but they may have improved themselves in terms of talent.
Right.
Yeah, this whole thing's interesting. And you know what I kind of forgot about, and I should have picked up on it on Saturday and everything, was I forgot that Bill Peters is the Calgary coach.
Yes.
Right. And I didn't really, I kind of tuned out after the first round, getting on my weekend and stuff, and never thought about this. So, I mean, what role did he have in suggesting this? But the other thing is, if Hamilton was the odd duck, that's all I'm going to call him, is the odd duck. Okay. Gullitson's track record with the Flames is not that great. And, while he managed to scoot them into the playoffs, things went wrong. And Hamilton, given his on-ice results and what happened when he was on the ice, he certainly was the on-ice problem.
No.
And you'd have to convince me that he was such, I don't know how you could convince me, actually, that he was such a negative effect. The trade him was going to give you a different vibe in the locker room that was going to produce, that was going to correct the other on-ice issues. And if you had to trade him, don't you think you might want to let a guy like Bill Peters have a little bit of time with him first? That's what I find curious about this.
I think there was a speed factor in this trade, though, that they probably didn't have the opportunity. But the other point is, hey, if TJ Brody's good in the room or great with the guys, he had a lousy year.
Yeah.
Well, and that was one of the things that was said immediately after the deal. And I do buy this after talking to Sean Vetter, who said the combination of Hamilton, Brody and Travis Hamonic did not work.
No.
Now with this deal, what it's going to be is Brody goes back with Giordano, and that was a dynamite pairing.
Yep.
And now they'll put Hanifin with the stay-at-home Travis Hamonic, and it'll allow Hanifin to jump into the offense more, left, right. It fits perfectly. I just, I like Hamilton, and I think Hamilton could flourish in Carolina. But I mean, we'll see. It was an interesting deal, and it was a fairly complex one.
Now we got to talk about other than draft picks, right? So
yeah, exactly. Yesterday,
look, for people in the chat room, we know there were minor deals. We know.
Yeah. I'm not going to. I'm sorry. I'm not going to talk about Michael Chaput going to Chicago. I'm sorry. No, I mean, come on. No, now yesterday, as we were boarding our flights or getting ready to pull our hair out of whatever hair we have left on our heads, the announcement came of John Carlson's contract extension, which we could see after the Orpik Grubauer deal, which we didn't really mention, and we should actually mention that a bit. Now Grubauer goes to Colorado along with Orpik for a second-round pick. It was only a second because Washington basically was getting payment back in terms of getting rid of the final year of Orpik's $5.5 million contract. Colorado is now bought him out. He's cleared waivers, and he's now an unrestricted free agent. And he could go back to Pittsburgh. He can't go back to Washington because he can't. That's not permitted by the CBA. But he can go someplace else. And at his point in his career, maybe he takes a 1-year deal and goes someplace and tries to win another Stanley Cup. But that enabled Brian McClellan to be able to lock up Carlson on 8 years at $64 million, which is $8 million per, less than Ekman Larson. So the third-ranked contract. And Peter, that's low. He took less to stay in Washington.
Yep. But it's 8 years.
Yes. He's 27.
Yeah.
Again, you can't. I think it's really hard to place a value on what's familiar and comfortable, and the fact that someone's going to give you $8 million a year over 8 years. I mean, what's an extra $500,000 worth or another $1 million worth to you over 7 years, right? Like, so it's $9 million over 7. It's 63 versus 64.
Right.
And you're with the guys who you've won with.
Right.
You're coming off a big high. Is it the right move for Washington? I think they'd probably like to have saved a little money on it, but I don't think they completely crippled themselves right now. But no. Any deal like that, you're always going to have a little bit of skepticism on it, and there should be, because they're dangerous. That's just the fact of life. They're dangerous deals in this cap age.
Here's where I failed at my job. I thought 2 years ago I would have bought Brooks Orpik out, right, to sign Carlson.
Right.
And I thought, hey, because they love Orpik so much that they're keeping him, and now it's going to be hard to keep Carlson. But what I didn't really have a chance or enough time to factor in, but thought about it a few days ago was, Orpik was Trotz's guy. He liked him in the room. He liked that veteran presence. Trotz isn't there anymore.
I wouldn't be surprised if Orpik signs with the Islanders.
Yeah.
Because they're losing Calvin DeHaan.
Yep.
So that might be a 1 year deal where he comes in to stabilize. But
yeah, so that's the thing. I didn't really, I didn't have enough time to really process that, and I think that was a big factor. That's a big thing for Washington because they needed to keep John Carlson. They did. Good for them.
Now everything from now until Wednesday or Thursday, and again, I'm not sure this is going to get to Sunday, July 1st, because if it does, then it's feeding frenzy time, and he could go anywhere. Probably when I'm talking about Tavares.
I think we talk about Carter Hutton. It's the summer of Carter Hutton. I don't know what you're talking about.
Please. Yeah, Carter Hutton's got 10 teams interested in him. I'll tell you something right now. It's like the goaltending scenario. I mean, the domino effect. Grubauer going to Colorado, I think, puts Varlamov in the market for teams that are looking for goaltenders. He's got 1 year left at 6, which is 5.9. It's a little pricey. Craig Anderson apparently wants out of Ottawa. There's another name. So, I mean, there's going to be a lot of movement in the goaltender scenarios here. But, I mean, I think that's all going to fall by the wayside until Tavares gets wrecked.
I don't think Varlamov's going to move, Mike. I think the natural progression after this next year. And
you think they'll split? Well, I mean, Grubauer is capable of being a number one if Varlamov gets hurt like he normally does.
Yeah, so exactly, and that's the thing. And they tried with Bernier, it didn't work. Although Bernier in the regular season, just at all strength, he put up a .913 save percentage. I mean, that's nothing. That's what you need your backup to do, is play at least average.
The problem with Bernier is it's just he's getting a little short for this league. He is.
Yeah, I agree. I agree, Russ. I agree. That's the problem.
It's a great time to be Carter Hutton. That's all I can say.
Yeah. Carter Hutton's gonna hit the jackpot. I don't think he's a number one goaltender. Some people, based on his 32 games last year, are gonna think he can handle a 1A, 1B scenario, and maybe he can. I have nothing against the guy. It's Act that has something against him. But to just go to Tavares here to finish off the show here, because I mean, I think everything's going to get held up on July 1st until Tavares, decides. But it could happen. I mean, I could be driving up to Puck Talks on Wednesday up in Toronto, and like a few years ago when Subban Weber, Hall Larson, and Stamkos happened, it could happen on Wednesday when I'm driving up the QEW that Tavares decides to re-up with the Islanders. And I think that is the most likely of the options. But, and I know Russ is of this mind, and I'll let him say it for himself, I think it's not a long shot that he goes to one of 3 or 4 different places. Now, today it's Tampa. I mean, the teams that will be meeting with him in LA at the offices of CAA, and that's why I compared it to Brad Richards from a few years ago. And they're not all today. It's over the next 3 days. Boston, Dallas, San Jose, Tampa Bay, Toronto, and a number of teams are taking, I may be missing one. There are a number of teams are going to be doing phone interviews. Teams that are not included are Vegas, which we thought they would be, and the Montreal Canadiens were told we're not interested. So I don't know if you have any favorites there, Russ. I mean, I think of the non-Islander teams that San Jose, Toronto are 1-2 because of what they could offer in terms of not just money, but in terms of support.
Yeah, I'm going San Jose 1, like they've been for a while, and I'm going Dallas 2, Vegas 3. But here's the thing. I really do think Tavares has just lived through too many bad times in that organization. He's been a good soldier. He's kept his mouth shut. He's been just great. I mean, Islander fans love him, but now they're starting to turn on him. I see things online where they're, for the last year where they're like, we don't need you. I'm sure he's looked at that. I'm sure he has that feeling in him too. And that doesn't get talked about a lot now because those are things Lou can't overcome. Like all Lou could overcome is saying, this is what I'm doing since I've got here. This is the team that I'm building. I hope you'll be a part of it. But even when you saw the quote from Lou, it's pretty much, what we expected. Like, hey, go ahead and check out, what you want to do. It's your right.
Right.
And so at the end of the day, I think some team is going to be smart enough to come up with a number they don't believe the Islanders will pay, and I think Tavares will leave.
But to this point, Lou hasn't. I mean, he's made 2 great first-round picks. He hasn't gotten a goaltender.
Right.
He could have traded for one. He hasn't. He hasn't done anything in terms of the roster or signed anybody. Really, they're in a holding pattern because if you go out and trade for a goaltender and Tavares still and do a couple other things and Tavares leaves, then you basically we're trying to get this team to be more competitive when without Tavares, you're probably not a playoff team. And I think they're still a good
team. That's what'll happen.
Yeah. No, to your point, Russ, I think you made a really interesting point about being a good soldier, but probably hearing some of the stuff online, stuff that's around, like the attitude that's changed.
The island for a year now.
Here's the thing that if he's aware of that, what happens if he signs in Toronto and Toronto's not any better and the same things are happening in Toronto? Like what happens if that?
I don't think it's going to matter because at the end of the day, this has only started because Islander fans felt like he was leaving.
Right.
He's not going to go to Toronto and play badly, so I don't think it's going to be.
I'm not saying that. I'm just saying the results in Toronto don't change. Toronto's a good team.
Yeah, but
they've had exceptional goaltending, and they've survived on some other things in spite of defense. So adding more offense may not change Toronto.
Peter, that could happen anywhere. Nothing is guaranteed.
No, I know. I'm just saying. I'm talking about fan base, though. And if he's out there, get ready for steroids in Toronto.
You know what I mean? Like Wendell Clark's revered. He didn't win anything. Like he'll just fall into the boat of other Leafs, unfortunately, that maybe haven't won.
But I honestly don't think that he would be if he goes to Toronto and they don't have any success over the next 2 or 3 years. Now it depends on what we're talking about here because there are scenarios out there, and I don't think that they're going to go for them. But I know that Ak tweeted about this earlier. A number of people were talking about since the Leafs have $25 million in cap space this year of the 1-year max deal, which would be at $15.9 million. And then on January the 1st, they can extend him for 8 years. Now, they can't do that immediately. That's circumventing the cap, but they can say we're going to begin negotiations in January and then sign him to a deal, and that would be legal. Now, the benefit for Toronto would be or the benefit for Tavares is he's getting a lump sum in 1 year, and then if he signs in Toronto, likes what's going on, then we don't know what the amount would be if that's the case. But it could be 10, it could be 11, it could be the same amount that he's getting offered from the Islanders, which is 11 million times 8 years. I think he keeps his options open because if things are working in Toronto and everything is beautiful going through the first 3 or 4 months and he likes where things are going, then he might very well sign that contract. And if not, as long as he doesn't have a catastrophic injury, he can be the biggest free agent in the 2019 free agent class.
0% chance. I'm just letting you know.
Yeah,
I think there's a lot of variables here, Mike, and it's definitely something they can do. I think you've got to go back and look at the player and say he and his agent have figured out what they want. And now they're waging who can best offer it.
Mm-hmm.
If I had to put a sleeper team out of the ones there, out of the 5 that are listed, it's San Jose. And I
don't think they're a sleeper. I think they're the number one option. But they're the number one option. But the thing is, in terms of they could win a cup this year with they're probably going to re-sign Thornton, but you have Couture and Pavelski on the last year of deals. There's a number of players that they have to get re-signed to keep them in the strong position that they are, and they probably will be able to do that because they've managed their cap fairly well. But there are others. Honestly, would you, Russ, look at Boston? put Tavares on the Bruins, and then maybe a year down the line they either buy out or trade Krejci. You're talking about 1-2 combo of Bergeron and Tavares up the middle with all the young players that they have coming up who are not having to be paid for 2 or 3 years. That's a scenario that's scary. Them or Tampa Bay with the way those are scary scenarios.
Oh yeah, there's no question, and that's why I think those possibilities do exist. I think the Sharks are the number one choice, though, simply because they can compete for the Stanley Cup immediately with him.
Yeah.
They've moved things around. They've got a mixture of young and old. They have a great goalie. When we start talking about all these other teams, really Nashville is the only other one that could offer that. And I haven't really seen if they're confirmed whether they're in the list.
Nashville, unless they're one of the teams that's doing a phone interview, and if you're doing
phone interviews now,
if you're doing phone interviews when people are making face-to-face presentations, I think that mitigates either your commitment or the likelihood that he's going to go there. So I think that
there's some people that can get it done on the phone too. Here's the thing: just because I'm doing a phone interview still doesn't mean I'm not emailing you my digital presentation and my PowerPoint presentation and my breakdown of players. I can still get all that to you.
Now, one thing, and I have to mention this because it was reported by Darren Drager this morning, and I don't put this in the category of the mayor of the city of Toronto and the CEO of Canadian Tire being part of the Stamkos presentation, because I think that that was a little over the top. But again, I think with Stamkos, it was more the fact that the Leafs were a 30th place team and we didn't know what Marner, Matthews, and Nylander were going to be. So he was going to be looked upon as being the savior. Apparently, Darren Drager reported this morning that part of the Leafs presentation regarding Tavares is going to be offering him the team captaincy, if that means anything. Now, that doesn't mean he takes it. Doesn't mean that he wants it. If he wants to go to Toronto,
I would be very surprised if that's true. No slight to the report that's out there, but I don't think any team ever offers that. So I don't think the Leafs would offer that.
Okay,
that's just me.
Okay. All right, guys. We'll end it there, and we'll be back tomorrow with another edition of the Hockey Buzzcast. We'll have Eklund back. Probably be a later show around 3 or 4 o'clock in the afternoon. I'll be going to the Leafs rookie development camp up in Toronto. Russ has some things to do, so we'll have a later afternoon show.
If you follow me on Facebook, you'll see why.
Yes, there you go. For Peter Tessier, for Russ Cohen, I'm Michael Agello. Thank you for watching, and remember, without the buzz, it's just hockey.